Welcome back to the deep dive. We have a massive stack of research on the desk today, and it covers some seriously wild ground.
We really do.
Yeah, we're going from, the bottom of the ocean to high-tech medical labs and eventually to the roots of a plant that you listening probably have sitting in your tea cabinet right now.
It is quite the journey.
But we're starting with a trend that is just absolutely dominating the skincare conversation right now.
It really is the topic of the moment.
Yeah.
We are, of course, talking about the quest for glass skin.
Right. That hyper-radiant, poreless, almost translucent look that seems to be the filter everyone wants in real life.
Exactly.
And usually when we dig into these trends, we find the usual suspects, right? Hyaluronic acid, maybe some niacinamide, or a new exfoliating acid.
The classics.
Right, but this time, the secret sauce behind the glow is, well, it is a lot stranger.
It is definitely not what you would expect to find next to your toothpaste.
No, it is not. We are talking about PDRN.
Ah.
And to be totally transparent with you listening, when I first saw the acronym, I just thought, okay, another peptide complex, cool.
Which is a fair assumption.
Right. And then I read the sourcing documentation in our research. We are talking about extracting DNA from salmon trout gonads.
Specifically, the sperm DNA.
Yeah. So we are essentially talking about rubbing fish sperm DNA onto our faces for a glow.
When you put it that bluntly, it sounds like a gimmick or a dare.
It really does.
But biologically, it is actually a powerhouse. So we're going to unpack exactly why PDRN is taking over, but more importantly, we really need to talk about how it gets into your skin.
Because that is where the real science fiction comes in.
Exactly. We are looking at melting nanofibers, microscopic sponge needles, and a brand new study that suggests we might be able to ditch the fish entirely for a plant-based alternative.
It is a wild ride, from melting patches to stinging needles. But let us start with the basics. PDRN, polydeoxyribonucleotide. Aside from being a massive mouthful, what is it actually doing in a skincare formula?
So let us get technical for just a moment. At its core, PDRN is a mixture of DNA fragments.
Okay.
To be precise, it is a linear polymer of deoxyribonucleotides. And the molecular weight usually sits somewhere between 50 and 1,500 kilodaltons.
Okay, so it is just chopped up DNA.
Yeah.
But this was not originally invented for, influencers to look shiny on Instagram, right? This has a real medical history.
Absolutely. That is really the trust factor driving this whole trend. It comes from regenerative medicine.
Right.
Doctors have been using PDRN for years to treat things like diabetic foot ulcers, which are wounds that notoriously refuse to heal because of poor circulation and tissue damage.
Wow.
Yeah. And it is used in ophthalmology for corneal epithelial regeneration and even in orthopedics to help with rotator cuff injuries and pain relief.
So the logic for skincare is basically if it can knit a diabetic ulcer back together, it can probably handle my fine lines and crow's feet.
That is exactly the logic. It's all about the mechanism. PDRN is not just a moisturizer that sits there. It is a bioactive signaling molecule. It acts as an agonist to the adenosine A2A receptor.
Okay, let us pause on agonist. For those of us who have not sat in a biology class recently, we're basically talking about a key, right?
Exactly, a key. Imagine your cells have these specific locks on their surface, the adenosine A2A receptors.
Okay.
PDRN is the key cut specifically for that lock. When it slides in and turns, it triggers a massive cascade of events inside the cell.
And when that door is unlocked, what actually happens inside the room?
Repair mode engages. It tells the cell to drastically reduce inflammation, which is huge because chronic, low-grade inflammation is a primary driver of aging.
Makes sense.
It also promotes cell proliferation, basically telling your cells to replicate and renew. And it even stimulates angiogenesis, which is the formation of new blood vessels.
Angiogenesis is a big word for a beauty product. Usually we just want hydration. But this is actually telling the skin to build new infrastructure.
Right. It is signaling the body to wake up and fix the damage.
No.
It is enticing because you are not just covering up the problem, you are chemically asking the skin to behave like it did when it was younger. It improves blood flow, bringing more oxygen and nutrients right to the skin surface.
Which brings us to the actual products.
Yeah.
Because we are not injecting this in a clinical setting here. People are buying this at Target or ordering it from Korea. And one of the biggest viral hits right now is the Anua PDRN collagen melting patch.
This is where we leave the chemistry lab and enter the engineering department.
Seriously, the marketing on this is aggressive. It claims instant glass skin, firming, erasing nasolabial folds, those smile lines.
Yeah.
But when you look at the ingredients, it is 99% collagen and 1% PDRN.
That ratio might sound really lopsided, but remember, the 1% is the bioactive signaling key we just discussed.
Right, you only need one key.
Exactly. You do not need a bucket of keys to open a door. You just need one. The 99% collagen, well, that brings us to a massive debate in the skincare community.
Oh, the collagen scam.
It is a harsh term, but it is a valid scientific critique.
I see this all the time on Reddit threads, especially over on Radiant Beauty. The argument is that collagen molecules are physically too huge to penetrate the skin barrier.
They are.
It is the 500 Dalton rule, right? If a molecule is bigger than 500 Daltons, it is like trying to push a beach ball through a chain link fence. The dermis just says nope.
That is the general rule of thumb. Your skin is designed to keep things out. That is its main job.
Right.
A standard collagen molecule is massive. We are talking thousands of Daltons. So in a cheap cream, that collagen is just sitting on top of your face.
Doing nothing.
Well, it hydrates, sure, because it holds water effectively. But it is not diving down into the dermis to rebuild your structural matrix.
So is this melting patch just expensive fancy tape? Or is the technology actually solving the beach ball problem?
This is where the nanofiber aspect becomes critical. The Anua patch is not just a piece of paper or a standard cotton mask. It uses electrospinning technology to create nanofibers.
Electrospinning. Wait, with electricity?
Yes, high voltage. It is a process usually used in industrial filtration and tissue engineering. They use high voltage to draw out charged threads of a polymer solution, in this case, a mix of collagen and PDRN.
Okay.
These threads are nanometers in diameter.
So instead of a solid sheet or a thick woven mask, you have this incredibly fine mesh.
Correct. And that mesh has a surface area that is exponentially larger than a standard film.
Because there are so many tiny fibers.
Exactly. The magic trick happens when you spray it. The patch is dry when you apply it. Then you mist it, usually with a PDRN or hyaluronic mist, and it vanishes.
It dissolves instantly on the skin. I have seen the videos. It looks crazy. It looks like it literally melts right into the pores.
It is a great visual.
Yeah.
Because the fibers are so small, they wet out immediately. Now, the idea is not that the collagen magically shrinks to bypass the barrier.
No, it's not.
No. It is that you are creating a super thin, highly concentrated film that adheres perfectly to the microscopic contours of the skin. It effectively shrink wraps the actives against the barrier.
So it is maximizing contact.
Yes. It forces the PDRN, which is small enough to penetrate if given the chance right up against the gate. It improves the odds of that key finding the lock. And the collagen creates an occlusive layer that prevents water from evaporating, which helps drive the other ingredients down.
Okay, so we have the melting approach to absorption, but the industry did not stop there. They decided that if the door is locked, we should just break a window.
Or pick the lock with a needle.
Let us talk about spicules, specifically the VT Riedel Shot 100. This product is everywhere, and half the reviews are people saying, I love my skin, but ouch.
It is a polarizing product because pain is literally part of the mechanism. If you do not feel it, it might not be working.
The name Riedel Shot sounds like a typo for needle, but the brand actually calls it Seoul Riedel Technology. What exactly are we rubbing on our faces here?
You are rubbing the skeletal remains of sponges on your face.
Sorry, sponge skeletons.
Yes. They are hydrolyzed sponge spicule.
What does that mean?
In nature, sea sponges have these microscopic, needle-like structures made of silica. Minerals, basically. They provide structural support for the sponge and act as a defense against predators.
So they are microscopic mineral shards.
Shards, yes. In the product, they are purified and coated with Centella asiatica to supposedly be soothing. But make no mistake, their primary job is to physically puncture the stratum corneum.
The outer layer of the skin. So it is like aeration for a lawn. You poke holes so the water and fertilizer can actually get down to the roots.
That is the perfect analogy. By massaging these spicules into your skin, you are creating thousands of microchannels. You are physically bypassing the barrier that usually blocks large molecules like collagen or PDRN.
And that is why it tingles when you put it on.
It tingles because the spicules actually stay embedded in your skin.
Wait, they stay in there, like splinters.
For a while, yes. Until your skin naturally sheds them with dead skin cells, which can take a day or two. That is why users report that if they touch their face the next morning, they still feel that prickling sensation.
That sounds intense. Is it actually effective or is it just masochism?
The clinical data is pretty compelling. VT claims a 31.25% reduction in vertical pore length and a 38.08% reduction in pore count over just 2 weeks.
That is a massive difference.
It is. By creating these micro wounds, you trigger a natural healing response. which means collagen production, plus you were creating a literal highway for whatever serum you put on top of it.
So you use the spicules to prop open the door, and then you throw the PDRN through the open door.
Precisely. It is a 1-2 punch of physical penetration and chemical signaling.
It is incredibly high-tech, but we really have to circle back to the source of the PDRN, because we are still talking about harvesting DNA from fish testes.
We are, and that brings up significant sustainability and processing questions.
Right. I imagine sustainable salmon sperm harvesting is not exactly a straightforward, eco-friendly industry.
It is usually a byproduct of the fishing industry, which helps, but there are still huge concerns about animal welfare and the environmental costs of aquaculture in general. But beyond the ethics, there is also a major chemistry problem. How do you get DNA out of a cell nucleus safely?
I am guessing it is not a gentle process.
Usually, it involves acid hydrolysis or enzymatic digestion. You have to dissolve the cell membrane and the proteins just to get to the DNA inside.
Okay.
The risk there is that using strong acids can leave chemical residues, or worse, it can actually denature the DNA.
Denature meaning break it.
Distort it, yes. If the DNA shape is warped by the acid bath, the key might not fit the lock anymore.
Oh, wow.
So you might be applying expensive fish DNA that is biologically useless because the extraction process broke the mechanism.
So this is where the plot twists, because there is a new study published in the PMC that suggests we might not need the fish at all. We might be able to get this glass skin repair from a root vegetable.
This is the pivot to phyto-PDRN, plant-based PDRN.
And the plant in the study is Panax ginseng.
Ginseng. It has been the king of herbal medicine for thousands of years. But this study did not just grind up a root from a farm. They used tissue culture technology to grow adventitious roots in a lab.
Adventitious roots. That sounds like something from a sci-fi horror movie.
It just means roots that grow from non-root tissue, usually in response to environmental stress. They are incredibly active biologically. And the extraction method they used here is fascinating. They did not use acid.
What did they use?
They used a process called microfluidization.
Microfluidization. Let us break that down for the listener.
Think of it as ultra-high-pressure physical crushing. They force the plant cells through microscopic channels at incredible speeds. The sheer forces physically shatter the cell walls to release the DNA.
So, no acid bath at all, just pure physics.
Exactly. It is much cleaner, there are no chemical residues, and the risk of denaturing the DNA is significantly lower because you are not chemically attacking it.
But the big question, the million-dollar question for this whole deep dive is, does a plant key fit a human lock? Because we are animals. Salmon are animals. It makes total sense that our DNA is similar enough to interact. But a plant?
That is exactly what the researchers wanted to know. So they tested it head-to-head against salmon PDRN. And the results were surprising. The ginseng PDRN acts as an agonist for the exact same adenosine A2A receptor.
Evolution is wild. We share a lock and key system with a ginseng root.
DNA is the universal code. And in this study, the effects were extremely potent. They found that the ginseng PDRN increased the proliferation of keratinocytes, that is your skin surface, and fibroblasts, the structural builders underneath, by 20%.
20% growth. That is significant.
Highly significant. And it boosted the expression of some critical genetic markers, filigrin specifically.
Filigrin is like the cement in the brick wall of your skin barrier, right?
Correct. Without filigrin, your barrier crumbles, moisture escapes, and allergens get in. The ginseng PDRN boosted that expression.
That is amazing.
It also boosted fibronectin, which acts like a scaffold for wound healing, and Ki-67, which is a marker that tells us cells are actively dividing and renewing.
So it is not just a nice vegan alternative that works almost as well.
In some metrics, it actually looks superior. In a 3D skin model, which is the gold standard before you move to human trials, a 50% concentration of this phyto-PDRN achieved reepithelialization rates comparable to EGF.
EGF is epidermal growth factor. That is the heavy hitter in clinical anti-aging.
It is. So we have a lab-grown plant root processed physically with no harsh chemicals, mimicking the regenerative power of pharmaceutical growth factors.
That is incredible.
It effectively challenges the entire assumption that animal-derived ingredients are automatically better just because they are closer to us biologically.
That is a massive shift for the beauty industry. It means we could have high-tech, DNA-repairing skincare that is completely cruelty-free, sustainable, and potentially safer because there is zero risk of animal pathogens.
It really opens up a whole new frontier.
And there is always that. But on this show, before we tell everyone listening to go bathe in ginseng DNA, we need to do a reality check.
Always a good idea.
We looked at the consumer reviews, we scoured the Reddit threads. Is this stuff actually working for people out in the real world?
The real world is always messier than a controlled petri dish.
Let us talk about the glow versus breakout war. Because for every person posting a selfie with flawless glass skin, there is someone else posting a photo of a massive, angry breakout.
We see this volatility with a lot of high-tech products. Take the MediHeal pads, for example. They use these advanced delivery systems. People love the bouncy texture of their skin, but there is a significant cohort experiencing severe irritation.
Specifically with the yellow box, right? The Vitamite version.
Yes, that one combines vitamin C with other actives. When you start stacking potent ingredients, vitamin C, PDRN, maybe some exfoliating acids, and then you use a delivery system designed to force them deep into the skin.
You are asking for trouble if your barrier is already weak.
Exactly. And there's also the issue of formulation. Many of these miracle toner pads contain ferments.
Ferments are great for the glow, but terrible for fungal acne.
Precisely. If you have Malassezia folliculitis, which is Tyrannus, fungal acne ferments are like throwing gasoline on a fire. They feed the yeast.
Right.
So you might use a PDRN pad for healing, but the ferment in the liquid causes a breakout.
It is a classic case of the inactive ingredients sabotaging the active ones. And what about the spicules, the Riedel shot? What are real users saying about that?
The user experience there is fascinating. The pain is a real barrier to entry for a lot of people. But more importantly, if you have active inflammation like rosacea or eczema, rubbing microscopic needles into your face is the absolute worst thing you can do.
You are creating micro wounds on skin that is already desperately struggling to heal its own wounds.
Exactly. You are increasing inflammation in a system that is already chronically inflamed. The Riedel shot is really for people with sturdy, resilient skin who just want to push for that extra 10% of texture improvement. It is definitely not for sensitive skin types.
There is also a sentiment I saw on Reddit that I think is really important to bring up. We call it the glass skin expectation. A lot of users are pointing out that the immediate, miraculous results they see, the poreless look, might just be water.
That is the Occam's razor of skincare.
Right.
If you take a melting patch or a highly saturated toner pad and you leave it on your face for 20 minutes, you are saturating the stratum corneum with water.
Your skin looks plump and poreless because it is literally waterlogged.
Like a kitchen sponge. A wet sponge looks much smoother and plumper than a dried-out sponge. The true test of PDRN or any bioactive ingredient is what happens in 4 weeks or 8 weeks. The instant glass skin effect is very often just successful temporary hydration.
So to the listener, do not confuse a temporary water plump with permanent DNA repair.
Exactly. Real cellular repair takes time.
So where does this leave us? We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We have gone from salmon sperm to melting nanomesh to stinging sponge bones and finally to high-pressure ginseng roots.
I think the big takeaway is that we are in a major transition period. We are moving away from simple lotions that just sit on top of the skin and smell nice.
Right.
We are entering the era of truly bioactive skincare and advanced delivery systems.
It is not just about what the ingredient is anymore. It is about how it gets in.
Correct. Whether it is using DNA to signal a receptor like a key in a lock, or using a mineral spicule to physically open a tunnel, the goal is to trick the skin into acting younger.
The industry is finally trying to solve the absorption problem, because if the ingredients cannot get past the gate, they are completely useless.
That is the new battleground. Nanofibers, melting tech, microneedles, they're all just different attempts to break the barrier.
But for me, I have to say, the most exciting part of this entire deep dive is the ginseng.
I agree. It proves that high-tech regenerative medicine does not have to mean animal-based ingredients.
It is a great reminder that nature often has the answer if we just look at the chemistry closely enough. The fact that a plant root has the exact same key to our cellular locks as a fish that connects us to the ecosystem in a really interesting way.
It really does. And it raises a highly provocative question for the future of the entire beauty industry.
What is that?
Well, if a ginseng root can mimic the regenerative power of salmon DNA so perfectly, simply by processing it correctly without chemicals, what other biological ingredients are we currently harvesting from animals that could be replaced by a well-studied plant?
Think about all the snail mucin, the cow collagen, the pig placenta.
Exactly.
Are we just one microfluidization breakthrough away from replacing all of that with a root or a leaf?
We very well might be.
That is a fascinating thought to leave on. Maybe the future of beauty is not in the ocean or the farm, but in the greenhouse.
I strongly suspect it might be.
Well, thanks for diving into the weird, slightly painful world of DNA skincare with us today. Check your labels, maybe do a patch test before you rub glass needles all over your face, and we will catch you on the next one.